Welcome to Manufacturing Tech Australia.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Grant. I'm the CEO and founder of WildTech. We exist primarily to work with Australian manufacturers implementing IT systems wherever they need to be. And if they've got operations across the world, we support them doing that as well. We've been doing it for quite a while. I'm a manufacturing guy. I'm not going to be speaking so much about the tech today. I'm going to be speaking a hell of a lot more about the process and what's going on out there as part of our journey and what we're seeing our customers doing. So really, the conversation piece today is around what's going on in 2026. We have really noticed a massive shift in the previous years. We've been in the AI game since Copilot arrived. As was mentioned about 30 months ago, we weren't far behind in setting up innovation practices and things like that to see what was actually happening. But what we've noticed is that the conversation has really shifted from PowerPoint presentations and Excel spreadsheets to actual real-life application of AI. And particularly in the last 6 months, we've seen a hell of a lot of movement in this stuff actually becoming reality. The storyline here is the tooling has finally caught up with the dream. Now, I think everybody who's been involved with AI, tried a project, tried something. Everybody in the room? Anybody in the room? A few people? Okay. So if you've had a go at it, the chances are it didn't quite get to where you needed to be in the early versions of this event, but we're really seeing that come to life now. So a bit of the stats, these are all come from the crowd from the Australian Manufacturing Week. 68% of manufacturers are already starting their journey. There's a hell of a lot of money that the government's throwing into it in terms of the tailwind that we have here. So $23 billion effectively coming down the line. And one of the really nice use cases around predictive maintenance and things like that, that's probably the number one use case we are seeing. But already reporting things like 45% reduction in downtime because of predictive analytics that are coming out. Biggest question we get is though, a lot of manufacturers go, oh, we don't even know where to start. How do we even start this journey? And what do we do? So it's really about, and if I asked AI to name the slide, it came up with the title, The Graveyard, and I think it's an interesting way to look at it. The biggest thing that we're looking at with people and organisations at the moment is what projects have you tried to work with over the last 5 years that didn't succeed? Why didn't they succeed as well? So there's a number of projects which actually started that basically found that the old technology set didn't work. There was a lot of issues with models that couldn't deal with the complexities of fragmented data or data that's not structured. So the models were quite often, they were too brittle or too messy. So imagine a service agent almost keying in something out in the field. It's broken, nothing more, nothing less. Or you're getting machine signal from something out on the floor. It's very hard for those old models to understand it. So the integration was also very costly, and there was generally long ROI horizons for these projects. What we're finding now is that we've got these models, I'm going to walk around a bit here so I don't feel like I'm just hogging this one spot, but the models are effectively able to deal with this noisy and sparse data that's coming through. The large language models are being able to understand what's actually happening here. We've been able to use Edge AI and low-code connectors to actually build the connectivity in a much cheaper and much more efficient way. So the return on investment story is starting to accelerate. We're seeing things that we're getting pilots that are getting paid back in 6 to 12 months, even shorter still. The other thing as well is that where we've got high technology debt, when previous a lot of interfaces and things like that, that's actually been reduced dramatically because we've now got these conversational AI agents building the code and reducing the actual technology debt as part of the whole storyline. It's really interesting. So yes, if you have a project like that, it's well worth having a look at it to see if that can start your journey. But what if you don't? We're seeing about 4 things at the moment, which we're calling vectors, but there's 4 things right now that we're seeing where people are looking at in terms of AI projects. The first one being around process and stock, IoT, we'll have a bit of a chat about that, anything around go-to-market, actually around the ability to manage contract and risk, it's a big topic at the moment, and service spots. There are 4 key areas where if you're thinking about a project, you're seeing a lot of movement in this space. So, I assume everybody knows IoT. If you don't, it's a great convergence technology story. IoT has been around for the last decade or so. It's well used everywhere. but it has its limitations. The number of times I've walked into a plant and seen something where there's a flashing dashboard and the computer's blinking something and someone's not paying attention to it is countless. So IoT is great for the perspective of, yes, it tells you something, but what is it actually telling you? We now have this opportunity to provide a bit of an umbrella across the whole storyline. So AI is now able to sit above the IoT sensors to actually understand what is it actually telling us. So for example, we have a manufacturer that actually makes smart silos. They're in the field, they've got grain, basically they're sitting there and they've actually kitted up each of these silos with IoT sensors. Now, the actual trigger they're looking for do we have a rodent pest problem in the grain? Have we got something shaking, something broken? With IoT sensors, they were able to understand something was wrong, but they weren't able to understand what was actually going on. By putting an AI layer over the top, when they actually saw, okay, we've got some movement in the silo, we'll turn on the camera, oh, there we go, we've got a rat problem. That was the sort of context we could bring to the whole storyline now. We could also bring other data sources into the mix and go, okay, the Bureau of Meteorology is saying there's a southerly change and the tank is shaking because of X, Y, Z reasons. So that context of AI being able to bring the movement of IoT and other data sources together really allowed the whole thing to come together in a coherent picture. So we're seeing a lot of this with IoT coming together with big data. It's a huge opportunity for manufacturers to bring this together. So you guys should know it all anyway, but component tracking, stock visibility, and the predictive maintenance side of things is, if you haven't started looking at that, that's the one area straight away. Being able to look at that and say, we can identify what's going on. We know a machine's out of whack. Let's get to it now. It's probably the easiest and number one way you can start this journey. Okay, so this is another huge, huge opportunity. So we're seeing a lot of people, a lot of manufacturers who have a complex sales cycles. So maybe complex engineering, complex estimating, or something of that nature where you have a long cycle. Say you might go find an opportunity, but you need an estimator that might take 5 to 6 weeks to do their job to actually pull apart pictures, drawings, or assess something. In those environments, AI is providing a really, really great use case to being able to pull apart visual data and actually be able to assess what's going on there and then actually provide quotes and things like that much faster than the human can possibly do at the moment. Now, the humans are still probably better at the job to some degree, but just the amount of time it takes to do it is enormous. So we're seeing some really great scale cases here where manufacturers with complex engineering, complex configuration, things like that, are able to build out models very quickly to actually get to your customers quicker. So, got some customers in the room today, I won't steal their thunder, but there's sort of things that we're working on with them today to try and improve that process generally. It's a really, really great story. Oil is the number one topic for a lot of people in the room today, and the price of oil. We've had situations now where your contracts that you write for plastics manufacturers, or if you've got plastics involved, have just spiked because the number one component part of the ingredient is actually oil. So being able to see and model what's going on when your input prices are soaring, collapsing, doing something like that, and being able to model around those is really, really important and a very topical use case for our customers right now. We have a plastics manufacturer, I feel for them, they're great guys. They've had this happen to them twice. The first time was one reaction, the second time was a very different reaction. The first time was when the invasion of Ukraine happened and the oil price went up to north of where we are today. And they literally had no idea what they were producing, what contracts they were working with, were they going to make any money. So they actually shut the doors because they didn't have the information to do the job. Fast forward to just what's happened now. We've been working with them for a few years and actually building out dynamic AI models so they could tell straight away, if this happened again, what was the impact. They were able to renegotiate their contracts. They actually had changed a lot of their contractual constructs so that when this happened, they weren't caught. So this ability to be able to model what if and what are the impacts has been a really, really big impact, particularly these days with costs and movement and even shortages across the board. Okay, fourth one. We've already talked a bit about this, but I'll just go back and just reiterate how important the whole agent story is. And primarily around the front, being able to sort of deal with service calls, being able to actually escalate issues in a smart way, but being able to have customers deal with somebody or something before the situation gets out of control. The final part about that as well with field tech is a really big thing here, where a lot of the issues that we talked about originally was unstructured data coming in from the field. If you can actually have agents helping people structure that data in some way, shape or form and getting it into the system so you can actually action things is a really, really strong use case, and we're seeing a hell of a lot of that. So they're the 4 areas really that we're seeing most of the action. So thought I'd drop this in just quickly about Queensland, because here we are. Let's quickly talk about it, because I think there's been a bit of a shift in the market space and thinking around it in Australia as well. There was the old rust belt between South Australia and Victoria and around then, and I've seen a lot of shift coming up into Queensland now. So I think if all of you are heading off to Australian Manufacturing Week, it's by no mistake it's sitting up in Queensland this year. Basically, there's 175,000 people just directly employed by manufacturing up here, and basically a hell of a lot of our gross domestic product being tied up. You said $29 billion there. So there's a lot of grants to go for as well. Make sure you put your hand up and go for those if you're operating up here. And also the Future Made in Australia targeting as well. So there's a lot to talk about Queensland, and if you're up here and operating up here, it's a great place to be. Finally, when we're wrapping this up, when people are asking us what and how we go about this, is basically that first thing I was talking about. Go back to the graveyard. Go back to the old projects that you were looking at that failed or didn't quite work as you thought they would. Make sure that you have a good sleep around it, because the technology that was used back then has absolutely changed. So if it was something that happened before 2023, I'm telling you now, the world has shifted so much, it's unbelievable. Make sure that you ground it into a P&L outcome. Yes, so that's saying a lot of people are still chasing some of these projects without grounding it into some sort of focus or financial outcome, and you can get it done very, very quickly. So that should be an issue. Make sure you run it together. Don't just go in there and actually turn AI on and then turn something off. You have to run it in parallel. It's not like about taking humans out. It's not about changing a process dramatically. But if you're going to pilot something and you don't know where to start, make sure you run it in concurrency with what's going on today. When you get comfortable with it, turn it off, move on, and build the next thing. And basically, make sure that you keep people involved at all times. There's still a very human AI element to the whole picture here. The idea is that AI is not here to really replace the jobs, it's actually to change the functions that we've been working. We'll be able to solve problems we don't even know we've got at the moment. And being able to focus that attention is a really, really big outcome from all the stuff that's happening today. There it is. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Tech Australia with Shane and Paul.